All right, guys. So welcome to part two of the Laravel, or this is actually part three technically, but part two of actual coding of the Stripe Laravel Express tutorial. I apologize in the last video. The screen was very small. I forgot to increase the font size of the actual code itself, so it might be a bit hard to view on that the migration and models video, but in the remaining videos, I will have an increased font size, so it'll be a lot easier to view all of the code. So now that we have our models and migrations created, I think we can start diving into working with the routes and the controllers, as well as a few other config stuff. So in the last video, I didn't include the services config file. I didn't edit that at all, so I have to do that in this video. So if we go over to services and we say Stripe. Oh, we're glitching right now. Okay, there we go. Public env Stripe public secret env Stripe secret and connect is env Stripe connect. All right, so that is our services file. So that's just going to allow us to use the get our variables using the config files or the config helper method rather than using the direct env helper method. So yeah. All right, so now we are ready to start working and building our controllers. So we're going to have about, I think it's three additional controllers that we have to make ourselves. So let's open up our terminal. See if we get that. Tool windows, terminal. Oh, I don't want it on the right side. I want that at the bottom. All right, so let's say PHP artisan make controller, and we will call this product controller. All right, so let's go over to controllers and we see product controller. All right, so we're going to want to have a few methods. So the first being, we want to have an index method which shows all of our products for us. So we'll say products equals product paginate. Let's say we want to have 12 products, and we want to return a view, which we don't have quite yet, but we will call this view product.index, and we'll say with, we want to return the variable products to that blade template, so we'll say products. All right, so that's our first method, and that just allows us to see all of the products on a page. I will implement some middleware just because we want to demonstrate, the actual Stripe Connect functionality. We're going to require our customers to actually have a card saved. So we're going to implement some middleware that requires them to input their card before they can view all of our products. That's just a side note I wanted to mention. All right. So the next method we want to have in products is we want to have the purchase method. Say purchase, and this will include a request. And we want to validate this request by using the UPC, which will be required. All right, and we want to access our user, and we will say auth user. This allows us to access our user. Then we want to access our product as well that we're purchasing. Product where UPC is equal to the request UPC. And we want to grab the first product. And since UPC is a unique identifier, I think there's only going to be one unique identifier anyway, so that's fine. All right, so we want to add we want to catch any errors. If the product does not exist, you can't purchase a product that doesn't exist. So we'll say if product is null, we will return back with an error saying that our product could not be found. All right. Otherwise, if our product can be found, we will create a transaction. We'll create this in our service method later on. So create a transaction. All right. And then after we create that transaction, we want to return back to the page with a success saying that we purchased, well, I'm just using sprintf to add a variable into our string. So you have bought the %s, which is just our placeholder, and then the product, we want to put our product name in that placeholder. You can do this, you can just concatenate it. I like to use sprintf, it's convenient for me. So yeah, it's easier to follow. All right, so the next method we want to create is in our product controller is we want to have the store method. So this is going to allow our sellers to create a product. And we want to access our user. And we will say, and we also want to validate a few fields on the request. So we will say name will be required. We can minimize our terminal for right now. And price will be required. All right. So let's create a new product. Say new product. And product UPC will be a random unique, using the support namespace, we will access the string class, and we'll say we want to have a unique UUID, unique ID. And then we want to have our product name is equal to the request name of the product, and our product price will also be here. All right, and then just a few other fields. We want to have the product seller ID, which will be our user ID, the one that inputted this. So we'll just say user ID. And then if for the optional fields, so let's check if the request has a description. We can assign the product description. So description is equal to request description. All right. And then if the request has an image, we want to assign an image as well. So if the request has image, product image is equal to, it's going to be a file. So we'll say file, access file, call this image, and we will store this in the images path, which we will have to create in a second. And we will use the public disk. All right, so lastly, we will want to save this product. And then we want to return back with a success saying, hey, the product was created. All right, so let's create the necessary, so in order to store the image, we're going to have to run the command storage link, which links our storage to our public directory. So PHP, so the public storage directory has been linked. And in that storage, let's create, or at storage public, let's create a directory called images. And that'll allow us to, this will allow us to input, upload images to our storage folder, storage public folder. So yeah. All right, so lastly, we want to have the actual form for adding the product. So we'll say add, and we'll just return the view product add, which we still have to create. All right. We could add an edit file as well, but since we're not really going to be, that's not the focus. We're not focusing on the actual CRUD functionality of Laravel. We're focusing on working with the Stripe Connect and Stripe Express accounts. I am just going to ignore that the edit method that is commonly used. So yeah. All right, so that is our product controller. The next controller we will want to create is the customer controller. Customer controller. And in the customer controller, this will allow us to, we will have to save the Stripe information from here. So if you're a customer, we want to save your credit, we want to save your credit card. So we'll just have two methods here. We're going to have the form, which is the actual view itself. So we'll say public function form, and we will say return view, say stripe.form. So that's pretty simple. And then lastly, we want to have the actual save method. So we'll say save request. All right, and we want to validate a few fields in this request since we're saving a card. We still have to create the Stripe service, which I will either do a little bit later on, or I will do in the next video. So we'll say the name field will be required. The credit card number itself will be required, of course. The expiration month is required. The year will be required. And the security code will be required. All right, and let's create an array of this data. So this will be for our Stripe service. We still have yet to create. So I'll tell you what's going on. So in the Stripe service that we'll be creating, it will be creating a token from the user's card that we just saved, and from there, with that Stripe token, we're able to create a customer through Stripe, and we will save that customer ID in our database, and I'll show you how that works in a second. Oh. Card number is request credit card number. Expiration month is request month. Expiration year is request year. And our actual security card is request, or security code is CVV. All right. So in our service method, we're going to want to require the user, which we will use once we create that service. And we will add a comment here saying create Stripe customer via service. And after we've created that Stripe customer, we want to redirect to the products page that we create. So redirect to route, and we'll call this products. We still have to create this, so none of the functionality will be working quite yet until we get to the next few videos. So we'll say with a success, saying a message of that the card has been saved. All right. So those are two methods that we'll be using in the Stripe controller, or a Stripe customer controller. We might want to add a semicolon, of course. All right. So the next controller we want to have, and the last controller that we'll actually create ourselves, that we'll need, is the seller controller. So we'll say PHP artisan make controller, seller controller. All right, and we will have, I think we're gonna have three methods in this one this time. We're going to have, so creating an Express account is different from creating a Stripe customer. With Stripe customer, all you have to do is you take in the user's credit card, create a token with Stripe, and Stripe then creates a customer from that token. As compared to working with Express accounts, Stripe is using OAuth. So what ends up happening is you create you're redirected to Stripe with a state variable tracking who that user is, and when they input their information on the Stripe form, on the Stripe's website, the Stripe Connect website form, and once they complete that, they're redirected back to our website, and our website then takes in the code, the account code associated with that Stripe Express account, and then we create an account from that code, and then we save that Express account ID in our backend so that we can reference that Express account so that we can actually send them payments. So the three methods that we're going to have is we're going to have the create method, and what create will do is it's just going to redirect our user to the Stripe dashboard. So we'll say auth user. So if this user does not have a Stripe Connect ID, wait a second, I'm not sure if we want to do this. Let me think about this for a second. So if the Stripe account, or if the user doesn't have the Stripe Connect ID, we want to redirect them to Stripe login. No, that's not how it works. So we don't want to have our user redirect to the Stripe website multiple times. If they already have a Connect ID, we will just redirect them to the Stripe dashboard, which uses OAuth. So there's two Stripe forms, or two Stripe pages that we use. There's an actual Stripe page for the form saving the Express account, and there's the actual Stripe data showing the Express account information, like the funds earned, or if you want to change your payment, if you want to change your bank information. So yeah, you'll see that as we continue on with this tutorial series. So basically, yeah. So if their Stripe Connect ID is not null, we want to redirect them to the Stripe dashboard, which we will call the route stripe.login. All right. Otherwise, we're going to have to create a session variable. So in that session variable, we will say session is equal to request session and get the ID of the session. And then we want to create our URI, where we want to add to our URI. So using services.stripe.connect, we want to concatenate the session ID to our URI. So I'll show you how that will look in a second. And then once we have our the URI, we are able to redirect to that URI. Oh. Can't spell URL, right? All right, so let me show you what that Stripe URI would look like. I'm going to pull up Stripe real quick on my site. So in the other tutorial I showed, or in the previous video, I showed you how you can configure your Stripe URI on the backend with the connect settings. So if you go to the Stripe documentation, go to Express accounts, if you're logged in, it will show you your actual redirect URI. Like this is the full redirect that you want to have. That doesn't look right. I'm actually going to pull up my env for my previous project, and I will show you what that looks like. Go to env, and we will submit this. So basically, here's the Stripe URL, and it has a get variable or get parameter saying our redirect URI to our website is what we inputted into our redirect URI from our connect settings, as well as our client ID, which identifies us with Stripe. And then we will have a state variable at the end, which as you can see is blank. But if we go over to the seller controller, you can see we're concatenating the session ID to that state variable. So that's how we're identifying our user when we redirect them back to our website, just in case they've been logged out or something like that. Because if they've been logged out, the actual code, or not the code, but it wouldn't be able to figure out what user has saved their Express account. So that's the reason why we have that looking like the URL looking like this. And then I can input my other env data. I forgot to do that already. So, cool. So we should be set there. All right. So those are our controllers. We're already at 22 minutes. Seems like these videos have been going by super, super fast. So in this next video, we're going to focus, since we've already created our controllers, we're going to start creating our services with Stripe.